Welcome to Terrific Talk. I'm Tom Anderson. Thanks for checking the podcast out. Beautiful day here from the Hoboken Studios in New Jersey. This podcast today is all for you NBA fans out there. I've got a great guest. The great K.C. Johnson is here. Nobody has been covering the Chicago Bulls on a regular basis for as long as K.C. Johnson. He's been covering the Bulls for the Chicago Tribune since Michael Jordan's second three-peat. Really excited to have him on today. Let me bring him in here. K.C. Johnson, welcome to Terrific Talk.
Hey, thanks for having me on. I appreciate it.
So I want to talk a little bit about you and your career here. First off, where'd you grow up and where'd your love of sports and reporting come from?
I grew up in Evanston, Illinois, first suburb north of Chicago, and obviously just played sports most of my youth. Always really enjoyed being around sports and recognized in high school that I also liked to write and also recognized that I would never be a professional athlete. So I figured
everybody says that.
Yeah, marrying writing and a love of sports might be interesting career choice. And I basically, I've been doing what I wanted to do since I was a junior in high school. So I feel very fortunate to be having the career that I'm having. Who
are some of the kind of writers you read growing up who you kind of wanted to emulate a little bit?
Well, it's funny because I was pretty much your typical sports geek. All I did was play sports, read about sports, write about sports, watch sports. And I penned a letter to the great Frank DeFord, one of the, in my opinion, best sports writers of all time, longtime Sports Illustrated writer.
Yeah.
Has obviously moved on to other things later in his career here. And I wrote a letter to him kind of detailing my passion, and he gave me the best advice I've ever received, and I've tried to pay it forward many times. And he said, you'll be a better sports writer if you ground yourself in a broader reading and writing background. And so when I moved on to Beloit, Wisconsin College, a small Division III liberal arts school, I really started, branching out into literature and philosophy, and a lot of writers had really shaped, or at least interested in me, Raymond Carver, Ernest Hemingway, obviously, guys like that. And so I think that's the best advice I ever got, because I do think the best journalists are the ones that have a wide variety of experiences, and just be writing about sports, but you're relating to people, and people come from a lot of different backgrounds and have a lot of different interests. So the broader experience you have, I think the better you can relate to people.
How did you get your start at the Chicago Tribune?
I took a path that no longer exists. It was back when newspapers ruled the world, and we covered high school sports very aggressively and very voluminously. Many pages devoted to high school sports. I took a glorious part-time job answering phone calls from high school from all over the area who would call in their, one-paragraph highlights on the girls' soccer result or the boys' basketball result, and you would take that and type it into the system. But it got me in the newsroom, and that to me was an education in and of itself, and allowed me to rub elbows with some great writers and reporters and editors. So that to me was like my PhD in journalism. Made it clear to editors that I wanted to write more, and pitched ideas all the time, annoyed them to no end, and started the Tribune in 1990 and got my first big break covering the Bulls' second three-peat in 96.
You mentioned the newspaper industry has completely changed from when you first started out. What direction is the newspaper industry going in now? How do you think a newspaper can be successful?
I still think newspapers are best when they try to step back, analyze, contextualize, place things in a broader context, often against the backdrop of institutional knowledge. I know that is not at all where the world is going. The world is going to immediacy and 140-character missives and, loud shouting and hot takes and all that stuff.
Yeah.
I would like to think, and maybe it's a little naive or head in the sand, but I would like to think there'll always be a room for newspapers in that world. I think you can do both. I'm obviously tweeting and doing a lot of things that I never did when I first got into business, but I think I do my best work when I take a deep breath, listen, step back, analyze, and try to put things in a broader context. And I think there's still also a demand, or at least I hope there's still going to be a demand for that moving forward.
Of course. What about your job do you love the most?
It's always been the people and the relationships you build. everybody doing what I'm doing can write. Everybody doing what I'm doing can report. I think what sets your work apart is getting people to trust you, open up to you, and that comes down to people skills and building relationships and doing so hopefully with integrity. And that to me will always be what attracts me the most about this job. Whenever my career ends, I will not look back on the missed deadlines or the great stories or what have you. I will look back on the people I met and the places I've seen and the relationships I've built. And that's why this job also, I mean, you obviously have, like any job, bad days or days that maybe aren't going your way or you don't love your job, but that to me is also why my job always interests me, because people are always changing. You're always meeting new people, and so you've got to work that skill set over and over again.
You mentioned how important it is as a reporter to earn people's trust. This is a hard question, but how do you do that? How do you get people to trust you to tell you things like that? Maybe cliche alert here, but be yourself. I think people see through phoniness. I think people see when you're trying to be something you're not. I think if you're comfortable in your own skin and don't try to be something you're not, and just lay it out there for people, and also stand behind what you represent and also what you write. And if you write something that, you know, might ruffle some feathers, show your face. And if somebody has an issue with something you write, talk it out. I think those are all things that build accountability at the end of the day. Switching gears here, you recently broke the news about Jerry Krause's passing. Jerry, of course, the legendary GM scout during those great Bulls years. I've read Jerry was a pretty, secretive guy. He didn't share a whole lot with the media, didn't really trust the media. But you got to know him a bit over the years and formed a bit of a friendship. How do you think NBA fans should remember Jerry Krause?
Just someone that really, really loved what he did and cared deeply for not only his home when he grew up in Chicago, but also representing his hometown franchise, the Bulls. That's the biggest takeaway I would always have from not only covering Jerry professionally, but then, as you mentioned, developing a personal relationship once those professional obligations expired. He so deeply loved being from Chicago, being raised by immigrant working class parents, and then rising to the level that he did. And he never tired of what he did. I mean, this is a guy who lost his job as Bulls GM in 2003, and yet, as late as 2012, I'm going around small town America watching him scout minor league baseball for the Arizona Diamondbacks, and
amazing.
He's in his 70s and loving every minute of it. I mean, boy, if I found something I liked that much, we'd all be pretty well off.
Real quick, today's opening segment is powered by the SeatGeek ticketing app. You know SeatGeek, the smartest and easiest way to buy and sell sports and concert tickets. Get a $20 rebate on your first purchase by downloading the free SeatGeek app to your phone. Just go to the settings tab and click add a promo code and enter the code Garden Report, all one word, for a $20 rebate so SeatGeek knows who sent you.
I'm interested in hearing your take on the city here. What do Bulls fans think of Derrick Rose today? I mean, when the trade went down, were they ready to move on? Were they relieved? How will Chicago kind of remember the whole Derrick Rose era?
It's impossible to paint with such a broad stroke. I will say that Derrick was one of the most polarizing athletes I've ever covered. There was a loud segment of the fan base that completely turned against him when he decided to sit out the 2012-13 season with the torn ACL. There was still a strong segment of the fan base that also supported him and admired his tenacity and stoicism in fighting through those 3, now coming up on 4 knee surgery rehabs. But it was a remarkable delineation between the arc of that career, in the sense that it was a too good to be true story, basically, from the time he was a number 1 overall pick and falling into the Bulls' laps with those low draft lottery odds to the youngest MVP in league history. I mean, it just literally there was not one thing he did wrong, it seemed like, between that moment and the torn ACL, and then from the torn ACL on, it was just the complete, opposite direction. So very, very interesting story to cover, and like I said, a very polarizing figure in Chicago sports.
I'm sure. Switching gears to the current Bulls here. The Jimmy Butler has been in trade talks, we all know, for a while now. He's a great two-way player. I know Boston was interested in him last summer. Bulls might have been a little reluctant to kind of trade him, but here we are now. They're playing well as of late, but it's been kind of a long season. What are the chances the Bulls kind of blow it up and move on from Jimmy Butler? What's the latest with that?
I would just say that, it's something they don't even have a complete organizational consensus on at this point. It's an unanswerable question. A lot will be determined, first of all, by the draft lottery and the Celtics owning the Nets pick, where that pick ends up being, and then whether or not the Celtics want to re-engage. I'll just say this. The Bulls, last summer, it was well documented. They had the internal debate whether or not to blow it up and trade him. They decided not to, and Jimmy has gone to another level.
Yeah.
That makes that decision that much harder. He's clearly one of the game's elite players now. He'll be on one of the 3 All-NBA teams this season. So if you're going to trade a guy like that, you need to get quite the significant haul in return, obviously. So unanswerable question, but it certainly will be contingent on how much the Celtics want to engage, and other teams for that matter, but the Celtics are the one that obviously everybody points to, and how many assets they offer the Bulls, and then it's up to the Bulls to decide.
Guys, I got to tell you about Audible. Audible is the leading provider for premium digital spoken audio information and entertainment on the internet. Audible content includes an unmatched selection of audiobooks and other audio products. Users can sign up as an Audible listener, which gives them book credits and access to short programs, now playing in channels each month for a low monthly fee. Customers can download their choices and can access them on their iPhone, Android device, Fire tablet, iPod, or other MP3 player. Support the Droid Talk podcast and receive a free 30-day trial and free audiobook from Audible. Just go to audible.com/try-now to receive your free trial from Audible today.
Last question here. Dennis Rodman just coming out and saying LeBron James resting shows he's not Michael Jordan. You were around MJ. You've covered LeBron. You've been around the game for years. Do you think that's a fair statement from Dennis?
No, I do not. I just think I've been a big LeBron fan from the get-go. I think he's, if you look at how long he's been in the spotlight and the way he's handled himself and represented the game with class, and obviously played at a ridiculously high level. Look, it's a different era now, and, old players can talk about it how differently however they want, and some people can have an opinion that the 82-game season, which Michael did quite often, was the way to go, but it's just not the way today's NBA is built. There's more sports science available, and the trend is towards rest and taking more days off and preparing for the long haul, and these guys play year-round now. It's a fun debate. I personally fall on the side of players know their body best, and I always say to the players and basically, I'm better at basketball than we are, so they can basically do what they want to get to what level they need to get to.
Definitely. Casey, this was great. Thank you so much for coming on today. Everybody go check out all of Casey's great work in the Chicago Tribune. Follow him on Twitter. His handle is @CaseyJHoop. It's a great follow. Highly recommend it. Casey, this was fun. Thanks again for coming on.
I really enjoyed it as well. Thank you for having me.